everyone, and welcome to the fourth talk of our Know Your Flow campaign at the Warren Youth Project. Who are we talking to today, Lydia?
Today we're talking to Stacey McEvoy from Purple House in Hull. She's been researching periods for months and months and is writing a book, and she's going to talk to us about reusable products today. Let's go.
I'm the training officer at Preston Road Women's Centre, aka Purple House. And for those of you that don't know, we provide a wraparound service for women that are or have been affected by domestic abuse, from housing support to support planning, legal services and training, which is where I come in. Now, as part of our mission statement, our organisation is committed to being involved in the community in the context of proactively empowering women and by extension other vulnerable groups. And about 2 years ago, as part of that engagement and empowerment piece, myself and a colleague were asked to write a book about periods. And that involved capturing the experiences from first periods to menstrual health complications, and to present them in a way that would challenge stigmas, taboos, create a soundboard of shared and diverse experiences to enrich our understanding and hopefully inform the wider discussion as a whole. Okay. And so for the last 2 years, that's all I've been doing. I've been talking about, listening to stories about, reading about everything that you can think of to do with periods. I've heard about it, read about it, or talked about it, to the point where it's become socially awkward. We're still gathering experiences. So if you're interested in having your voice heard, please get in touch. And I'd love to either interview you via Zoom, or we have a range of links available for different questionnaires depending on your gender identity. If you want to get involved, you can get my details from the Warren. Okay. The cutoff date for gathering that information is July this summer. So I'm trying to get as many people as possible at this point. And it's through this research that I became much more aware of the products that we use and the impact of their usage and the alternatives. And that's what I want to talk about today. It's reusable products. But in order to have that discussion, I need to drill down in a few key areas, because I'm not just going to sit here and hold up some reusable pads and talk about how pretty they are. Because there's a bigger and wider context to reusable products. So I'm going to go through the language that we use, particularly in terms of advertising, the products that we currently use, their impact on the environment and our bodies, and the alternatives and how that works in sort of connection with period poverty. Now for a bit of a caveat, okay? It's not for me to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't be using to deal with their period, okay? Because, everybody's period is different, everybody's period is their own, and they come with their own set of challenges. And feminism is about choice and empowerment to make the choices that best suit you. What I hope to do today is provide you with some information about the choices that are available to you. Some of the information that I give you today, you may already be aware of, and that's great. So let's just dive right in and talk about language and why this is so important. So I'm going to share my screen now. I've got some slides prepared. Throughout the slides bit, I'll ask some questions. If you could just post your comments for now in the chat, I'll address them then. And then later on, we'll do some discussion. Right, so if you could have a think about what words pop into your head when you think of periods. Okay, so just pop it in the commentary, and just anything that kind of pops into your head. And then once you've done that, any words that pop into your head regarding the products that you use. Is there a way to show the commentary box while I'm on this?
Yeah, if you click, have you got a chat at the bottom, or do you want me to read them out, Stacey?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that would be easier. Yes, please.
All right, cool. So we've got pain, hormones, blood, discomfort, dysphoria, again, cramps, blood, pain, spots, tampons, pads, cuts, uncomfortability. I wrote never ending, because it feels like that.
Okay, so that, it doesn't surprise me that I'm hearing any of those words, quite frankly. It's no surprise that nobody has written amazing, awesome, love them, because we have gotten used to viewing them in such a negative way. And for a lot of people, they can be a real challenge. But the thing is about language and the words that we use and why they're so important, why I maintain they're so important, is because they shape how we view the world, how we perceive others, and how we perceive ourselves. So it's no surprise that the wider social and cultural view of periods, for the most part, is a source of shame, okay, or embarrassment. It's something to be hidden or kept from view or cleaned away. Now, when we look at the products that we use, we end up with words such as discreet, fresh, sanitary, hygienic, and all of these things are found in the feminine hygiene aisle. Okay, a term that is loaded with meaning and context beyond just the implication that vaginas are somehow inherently dirty and need to be kept clean. Lizzie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a bit of mic issues. It's the fact that vaginas are often inherently quote unquote female. Yeah,
Yep.
I know a lot of people who have them and aren't.
Yeah. Which was actually, you've just stolen my next point, but that's what I was going to say, because you have this loaded kind of context of they're inherently dirty and that they're linked with femininity. Okay. Now, obviously, for some people, that's a really strong and powerful thing, but for others, that's there's a complete, I suppose, dissociation with it. Now, period products weren't even advertised on TV until 1972. And the word period didn't get used on TV until 1985, when Courtney Cox, pre-Friends, had an appearance in a TV advert for Tampax wearing lycra, about to go into a dance session, I think, stated, "Feeling cleaner is more comfortable. It can actually change the way you feel about your period." Now, whilst it was a great, land sort of mark in our history in terms of being able to use the word period on TV, it still reinforces that idea that it is something that you need to keep clean, that it's dirty somehow. In 2005, Tampax again reinforced the idea of discretion and secrecy by producing a product that looked like sweets. You remember the pastel colored sort of wrappers that they had. And the advert that they showed had two girls in a classroom who were secretly passing each other a tampon. And the male teacher saw what they were doing and interrupted them, but he thought that it was sweets, so it was okay. I mean, part of me really wants the girl to kind of like whip it out and go, "I'm on my period," but they didn't do that. They didn't go with that option. In 2015, the firm that manages the New York City subway advertising system actually considered not running these adverts for Thinks, which do reusable period pants, because they used suggestive imagery with the grapefruit and the runny eggs, and they used the word period. It wasn't until 2017 that Bodyform shook things up even further by creating a TV advert that showed blood instead of the usual standard blue liquid, which received an unbelievable backlash. And last year, Modibody, who also make period-proof pants, had an advert on Facebook that was banned because it depicted blood rather than blue liquid. In the same year, Thinks faced another ban, this time on TV, because they dared to show string hanging out of somebody's underwear. Now, if we take a moment, I want you to think about what annoys you most about advertising around period products. Whether it's a TV advert, a poster, social media advert, whatever it is, write in the comments the things that annoy you the most about advertising of period products. And then if Lydia, you can do the old commentary again. You see, this way they get...
If it's difficult for people to type in the chat? Are they all right to just speak up if they wanted to?
Yeah, sure, because there's not loads of us, so it won't get chaotic.
Okay, so scented products. What a good one.
Yeah, I've got something to say about those in a bit.
And they always seem to show women exercising. That's the last thing I want to do when I'm on my period.
I know. And it's really kind of not good for you. There's a menstrual health expert called Maisie Hill, and she talks about the menstrual cycle in terms of seasons, and she talks about the spring, the summer, the autumn, and the winter. We've decided in our house that that's what we're going to use from now on. So when my period is due, I will tell my partner winter is coming. So that's our code now forever for periods. But she points out that when you're in your winter, when you're on your period, you really need to be just kind of resting and conserving your energy. Sorry, my period pants are all like falling on top of me.
So we've got it's so seen as something charged with a disgusting aura. They're always so ignorant of how they actually work. And also the onus to be environmentally friendly as an individual responsibility and making people feel guilty. Which I think is a really, really good point.
It is. Again, that's something that I'm going to address. The language in particular, the words that we use, I mean, we use things like discreet, clean, fresh, sanitary, hygienic, feminine, the way that things are advertised now. How else are we supposed to feel about our periods when everywhere we turn, the very products that we use tell us that it's something that we should be embarrassed by, or that it's something that we need to be discreet about? You know, that's why our behavior is impacted upon. So that's why, you know, when a friend asks for a tampon, it's like a secret drug deal where you're kind of like passing, you know, the tampon or the pad really secretly, or you put things up your sleeve, or if you're in a, you know, public toilet or the school toilets, you do with the pad and it goes, you're kind of cringing and, you know, waiting for somebody to flush a toilet so you can pull it at the same time. You know, so we've been conditioned to believe that our bodies are doing something disgusting and dirty, and that we need to keep them clean and fresh and have as little to do with our menstrual fluid as possible, and that it's icky and it needs to be gotten rid of. So I just want to ask you, have you ever used or thought about using reusable period products? And you can shout out for this one because there aren't that many of us, if anybody wants to.
I think Lizzie's got a hand up and we've got a yes from someone else in the chat.
Is that a yes, you've used them, or a yes, you've thought about it?
Does it count if you've used them to mop up blood from a different source?
Well, you know, I'm just glad that they were available and to hand, being put to a practical use.
Yeah, somebody else in the chat has tried. I've recently tried as well. I know Elle has. Like,
I love the way that you're using the phrase "tried" as if you've given it a go, but there's a but.
I'm converted.
I'm converted. It took us about, like, the first time I used a cup, the first period I used a cup, I was like half cup, half tampon still. I had like a transition period.
A phasing it in, yeah.
Yeah, and then the last period I had, so that I think that was 3 periods in, I used it like throughout the whole time. I slept in it, I ran in it. Yeah, no leakage.
Good. Fantastic. Right, okay. Well, we've talked about the words that we use and how products are sold to us, but now I want to talk about the products that we currently use and their impact on on the environment and our bodies. So when we think about period products that we usually think in terms of, it's pads or towels and tampons, both of which are intended for single use, to be placed in a bin, which will then go on to landfill, or in many cases flushed down the toilet, which only ends up causing blockages or ends up in our oceans. Now, the problem with single-use disposable products. According to WEN, which is the Wildlife Enforcement Network, there are 9 plastic applicators found per kilometre on our UK beaches. It's the 5th most washed up item on our beaches. That's more than single-use coffee cups, plastic bags or straws. And yet, whilst there's been a significant shift in policies around each of those items, from withdrawal to supermarkets to McDonald's changing their paper straws, the same cannot be said for period products. There has been no significant push to this end that has reached the general kind of public attention, not on the same scale. Now, the average standard pack of period pads, if you think back to that image of the tampons and what have you, they contained 4 plastic bags worth of plastic. That's the wrapper, the individual wrappers, and whatever plastics are inside the pads themselves. Now, I use past tense, contained, because this is actually increased to 5 plastic bags worth of plastic. And over the lifetime of menstruation, the average amount of single-use products used is estimated at more than 11,000. That's 200,000 tonnes of waste per year. And that means annually there's 100 billion period products being thrown away for landfill. So if you were to lay them all out in a really neat and slightly gross circle, it would, in a nice chain, it would circle the earth 250 times, which is pretty shocking. They can't be recycled and they take about 500 years to degrade, which means that by the time that your great-great-grandchildren are born, the single-use period products that you're throwing in the bin today will still be sitting in landfill somewhere, which just makes me sort of go. Now, there is some considerable debate about responsibility over the environment and the impacts of our consumption of goods. You know, is it up to the individual? Is it the government? Is it corporations? I say it's a bit about everybody. You know, McDonald's didn't suddenly wake up one day, you know, after farming and doing all kinds of devastation, farming their beef, and go, do you know what we need to do? We need to be more environmentally conscious. Let's get rid of plastic straws. You know, they made the switch to a fairly useless paper one, and because of mounting public pressure, you know, it was the backlash of public pressure that made them do it. They saw a shift and capitalized on it. They recognized that other competitors were going to do it too, so they may as well join in, right? Plus, there's, you know, governments are now trying to enforce, you know, our energy consumption rates and what have you. So, you know, there's a little bit of pressure going from around, but mostly it comes from people, it comes from consumers saying, no, we don't want this anymore. Now, women and girls are amongst the most vulnerable people on the planet. We know this, and we know that they aren't the only people who menstruate, and that they too face other vulnerabilities. And to place them at the source of responsibility for all of this is largely unfair. Period poverty exists, and we know that it's real, and it has a significant impact on people's lives that are affected by it. You know, from missed days off work to missed days off school, the impact on your education, the shame that comes with it. It's pretty bad. So do we add this extra responsibility to their plate? No, I don't think so. However, I do think individuals can affect change, and that if there is an opportunity to affect change through consumer choices and pressure, then it should be done. And maybe by one person who can take action, you know, maybe they'll be able to do it for others. Okay, now, maybe you're not convinced by the environmental argument, maybe you are, but let me go on to the impact on our bodies and why I think we should all be thinking twice about single-use products. Now, single-use disposable products are made up of a variety of not very nice things. So let's take a quick look. Plastics. Now, Remember the pack of pads with the plastic wrapper and then the individual plastic wrapper and the plastic inside the pads? Well, plastics contain things called BPAs. Now, you might have seen lunch boxes and water bottles and baby items, whether it's, their milk bottles and toys and what have you, all saying things like BPA free. Well, that's because BPAs are a real problem. They interrupt and disrupt the endocrine system. Now, the endocrine system is a bit like the instant messenger platform in our bodies. It carries vital chemical messages from one part of the body, like the thyroid gland, to another part of the body. And the BPAs disrupt by either blocking the hormone or mimicking it, which means that you end up with hormonal imbalances. And that can affect your stress responses, your metabolism, your weight, your energy, your reproductive health, and growth. Now, here's the thing. BPAs are pretty much everywhere, right? They're so prevalent in our lives that they're even found in particles of dust. Does that mean that we just go, oh no, there's nothing we can do? Of course there is. They're pretty hard to get away from, but you can absolutely minimize your exposure and risk through the choices that you make. Remember the tampon advert with the glass of blue liquid and the 2 different tampons that they used to show on TV, and they'd put one tampon in and it would take up a little bit of the blue liquid, and then in another cup there would be another super tampon and it would soak it all up and it'd go like that. Well, that's because it had a thing called super absorbents in it, which are polymers that can absorb hundreds of times their own weight, but they're also highly toxic. And it doesn't just suck up menstrual fluid because it doesn't know the difference. It sucks up everything else that's in there, which is not good, because you actually need some of that moisture. Rayon. Rayon has been used in the past extensively in clothing manufacturing back to the 1970s, lovely polyester shirts. However, now it's commonly used in tampons, and it contains a chemical called dioxin. Now, Tampax actually advertise on their site and state that their tampons do indeed have trace levels of dioxins, but they said that there's so little that it's negligible, totally safe. Except for the fact that the US Environment Protection Agency has already stated that there is no safe level of exposure to dioxins. The problem with dioxins, they're linked with toxic shock syndrome, which is surprisingly hard to say. Fragrances. You're not smelly. You don't need perfume down there. Okay, I'm just putting that out there right now. If you put perfumes and fragrances down there, whether it's the lovely scented liners that I've seen, you're going to mess with your pH levels, causing irritation, itching, and potentially bacterial vaginosis. Don't need that. Chlorine bleach, because everybody really needs a really, really, really white tampon. It's what we live for. The byproducts of using bleach are chemicals that are linked to endometriosis. And then my last favorite one is phthalates. Now, these affect both testosterone and estrogen, which impact on your menstrual cycle and affect your mental health, your mood, your libido, energy levels, and bone density. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I've been using these products for years. It's been fine. Women have been using them for years. I'm sure they're all fine. And they can't be that bad, right? Maybe. But it was established in 1918 that toxins can be absorbed into the body through the vagina. Now, you're probably thinking, yeah, but that was then. How about now? Surely these things aren't in our products anymore. Well, in 2016, which is only 5 years ago, it was revealed that 5 out of 11 menstrual products showed traces of chemicals and pesticides. So our single-use, convenient, disposable, clean, discreet tampons and pads are potentially carcinogenic and putting us at risk. And we're putting them inside us, or at the very least, very next to a very intimate area. So, I've got that one. Does any of that surprise you?
Do they bleach?
Anyone?
Do they bleach your tampons?
Yeah. Well, what they do is they bleach the cotton.
Right, okay.
Cotton goes through a bleaching process to, make them more appealing.
Lizzie's got her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Lizzie.
Right. I obviously am someone that won't have a normal, quote unquote, menstrual cycle, because that's not how everything will work after hormones, surgeries, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's all pretty confusing to me, because whilst I will have a vagina at some point, it won't be the same as someone who was born with it.
Yeah.
And I think the closest I'll get is like the cramping and the pain and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But to skip forward, because I'm going to be stuck for about 4 hours on this. That none of this surprises me, that all of this stuff that was used 100 years ago is still being found in today's products. Because, for example, most of the aluminium we use to make like Coke cans and stuff has been in circulation for 100 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me, not in the slightest.
Yeah, and our aluminium cans are actually lined with BPA as well. So
it makes me think that it suits somebody's particular agenda for these to sort of, when you're looking back at language and stuff, and we're wanting things to be very discreet, like not only is that kind of shaming people that have periods into having one, but it's also like being like, oh well, if we don't talk about it and if we don't talk about the products because we've got to be discreet, then as a company and as we can get away with putting these harmful things in because we're telling everybody not to talk about it.
Yeah. I really love the fact that Tampax have just put it out there in plain sight. Yeah, we put this stuff's in there. Won't hurt you though. It's I think hiding in plain sight.
It reminds me of what's going on at the moment, and they're saying about the is it that Johnson and Johnson vaccine causing blood clots, and people comparing it to actually, well, this certain contraceptive pill, you're much more likely to get a blood clot, and zero people are kicking up a fuss about that.
It's probably a good idea not to get me started on hormonal contraception, because I could talk about that for another hour. Oh, yeah. Now, the things that I have, I mean, one of the big, it is a slight off the track, but one of my big bugbears about hormonal contraception is that it is prescribed to correct or mask a significant amount of menstrual problems. And I sort of think, no, actually, that's not fixing it. That's masking it. It doesn't help. And actually, if you look at the ingredients that are used in hormonal contraceptions and the things that they do to the people that use them, they are carcinogenic. When a study was done for a male hormone contraception, they went, no, can't do that, because it leads to all kinds of horrible things that women all experience that use hormonal contraceptions, or anyone that uses hormonal contraceptions. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but I'm down with corporations. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now because I want to get into the alternatives, and I've got some stuff to show you all. So really, what are the alternatives? The alternatives to using single-use disposable, there's kind of like an intermediary one, which is if you don't want to go fully reusable, but you still want to be environmentally conscious, you can think of, totally agree, Lizzie. You can use things like organic tampons or organic products. I'm seeing a lot more effort being made by disposable products to use organic cotton in their pads or in their tampons. There are a couple of different companies that have made like a reusable applicator for your tampon. So instead of just discarding your applicator, you can rinse it off, put it back in your little case, and use it when you need to. Of course, if that's not your jam, you can go with reusables, and this is where the fun begins. Now, I looked at reusable products maybe 10 years ago, and the main one that I came across back then was from Honor Your Flow, which was the reusable pads. Now, don't be scared, it's not a giant. It's this is for a heavy flow kind of product. So if you've got a really heavy flow period, this is what you would use, or overnight. So yeah, you've got Honor Your Flow. This was the first one that I ever kind of became aware of, and that was quite a while ago. And over the years, the number of products that have become available has improved year on year. And I would even say in the last 2 years, when I started doing this project, the number that has been available has just increased dramatically. And what's amazing is that the products that are available reflect the people that are using them and the diversity that exists. And they all have their own benefits and drawbacks. And I'll go through each of those now. But the only thing I would say is that at the moment, they still all seem to be, with the exception of maybe Thinks Moddy Body, it's mostly advertised through social media platforms. It's not something that is very commonplace on the high street. I know that I think it's Tesco's are going to be running their reusable products, but for the most part, supermarkets, you go into them, you're not going to see this, it's not a commonplace item to find on a shelf. So it's still done largely in secret, and if you've got access to the internet. But the products that we've got are pads, cups, or discs, and period-proof pans. And I'm going to go through each of those. And we'll start with pads, because I think that they're a really good gateway product, if you will. And they're usually made with bamboo or cotton, but they may also use things like microfiber or charcoal microfleece. Now, if you were wondering, as I'm sure you were, bamboo is one of the most sustainable plants on the planet. And it can grow to full size in the space of 3 to 4 months, as opposed to years. It's also antibacterial and very durable, which is why we're seeing more and more of its usage in, kitchenware, and our period-proof pants are also used the same material. Now, they're made up of, you can get them in different sizes just to compare, right? The size here. I've got really thin. This would be considered a liner. It's a little one. So you've got the different sizes for different flows, whatever your needs are, and you wear them the same way that you would a normal pad. Like, the only difference is that instead of throwing this one away, you would rinse this one with cold water and then throw it in your washing machine without fabric softener. I should put that in. Big caveat: don't use fabric softener. It'll wreck them. But if you take care of your pads, these will last you a good 2 years. All right. And there's a range of providers who offer different designs, different colors. I mean, I've got ones with little monsters, aliens on them. There's dragonflies, if you like that kind of thing. Love hearts. Right. Dolphins. And my personal favorite, but I don't have to show you, sharks. I just think that's ingenious. But different colors, different fabrics, and you can get them usually in a kit bundle from places like Cheeky Wipes, Little Lamb, Honor Your Flow, Earthwise. There's loads and loads. You just Google them and you'll find them. And a kit bundle will usually provide you with a minimum of 3 pads, but you can sometimes get more, and they start around about £15 and go up to around about £20 mark, give or take a few pounds each way. And what I love about these designs is that in relation to other reusables, they're quite cheap, and like I said, they're less intimidating than maybe a menstrual cup, which we'll talk about in a second. And I like the fact that they offer that flexibility in terms of design. So if you're not interested, if you don't want dragonflies and love hearts and pastel colors, you can go and get yourself some shark pads. Any thoughts on those?
I think you just have to, I just think I would just have to do a lot of washing, like put a wash on or buy loads. And how much are they?
Well, as I said, the best thing to do is buy yourself a kit bundle where you get a minimum of 3 or 4, which, like I said, usually start around the £15 mark, but they can go up to 20 quid. What I would say about the washing is that, because I've used them, I just threw them in with the rest of my washing. I mean, I suppose it's one of those that I've at Shark Week. Yeah. I suppose it's one of those that if you don't do a lot of washing very frequently, like I've got a family, so it's like I'm washing a lot. So it's, no skin off my nose to throw them in the wash. But you could, I suppose, sort of save them. As long as you've rinsed them, put them in your little, wet bag, and then when you do a wash, throw them in. So you wouldn't necessarily have to do loads and loads of washing. I suppose it depends on your flow, like how heavy are you, those kind of things. So for different people, there's going to be different drawbacks. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Might be a stupid question.
Yeah.
So pads have got a sticky.
Yeah.
Have these not got a sticky, and
no.
Do they move around a bit?
I suppose that would probably be my big sort of criticism of them. The washing doesn't bother me, but the depending on the fabric, you can see there, they all have like little buttons, like popper buttons. So you place them around your pants the way you would a normal pad, but instead of it sticking in place, it's not that it moves around so much, but it can bunch up a little bit. So for me, and that, when I say that, I would say these ones, which are slightly more linen-y and cottony, they tend to bunch up and move about a bit. But I haven't used them all, so I don't know. I have a feeling like these ones would be a bit more. I think these are bamboo, and I think they'd probably work a bit more effectively and not bunch up and move around quite so much.
Someone's just asking in the chat, Stacey, about washing them with other clothes, and is there any problems around that?
Fine. Well, again, rinse it with cold water first. Sort of rinse, run it under the cold water tap first. That helps with staining as well. And just throw it in with your clothes. If you've got a bloody nose and you had a nosebleed and it went over your top, or you had another cut, you wouldn't just sort of go, oh, I have to wash that separately. You'd throw it in, you'd rinse it off and throw it in, same as any other soiled garment, what have you. So and what I would say is a big misunderstanding about menstrual fluid is that it's primarily water. Menstrual fluid is made up of a lot of different things. It's not blood in the same context of if you cut your hand. It's not that blood that's coming out of you. It's other things. So it's a very watered down version. I know it doesn't look it when you're looking down in the toilet, but it's a better term to use would actually be menstrual fluid rather than blood. So it's safe to throw in the washing. Don't worry about it. You're not going to contaminate your t-shirts. They're not going to come out suddenly looking like vaginas or anything like that. I'll talk about menstrual cups now. And menstrual cups are designed to collect your menstrual fluid rather than absorb anything. And they're usually made out of silicone, which is either food or medical grade. So they are completely plastic free, which means that there's no BPAs or any toxic chemicals. Unfortunately, they're not biodegradable, but they will last you for about 10 years or more, depending on how well you look after them. They're small and foldable, and you sort of just put them like that and then pop them in, and they kind of, there's these little holes around the rim that create like a suction effect, and you can leave them up there for 12 hours. That's the most that you can leave them up there for. And then, or if you need to take them out sooner, you just reach in, take them out, empty it, rinse it off, and put it back in. So you can leave them overnight. They hold 5 times more fluid than a tampon or a pad. And because some of them have measuring lines, they can be used to help you monitor how much menstrual fluid you're actually losing, making diagnosis of things like endometriosis a bit easier to do. Now, there are countless makers of menstrual cups, from Organic Cup, Moon Cup, Diva Cup, Ruby Cup, Lunette. Honestly, there's so many of them, it's unreal. And the prices usually come in at around about £20, give or take a few pounds either way. And they usually come in 2 sizes, either for if you've had children or if you haven't. Some of them say about, being under 30 or what have you, but a good gauge is, have you had kids, have you not? The drawback, of course, to menstrual cups is that you have to get a bit intimate with yourself. And this can pose, a few problems in terms of if you've got a disability that makes this a challenge for you. It can also be uncomfortable for somebody who suffers with a tilted uterus or has any kind of pelvic issues. I know that I have a tilted uterus and pelvic issues. So sometimes my cup, it's great. Other times it's really uncomfortable and I can't wear it. But that can just be a case of, find out your angles. So I once had to make an advert for a Moon Cup in college, which was really fun because I was the only,
The only one there comfortable making it, and was also the only male. Love that, Lizzie.
It also may prove challenging if your relationship with your intimate region is not a comfortable one. Okay, but on the upside, once you've got the hang of putting it in, you don't need to go near it again for 12 hours. Okay, which means that you are minimizing the amount of contact that you have with yourself. For those of you who think, oh, that's gross, but have an otherwise good relationship with your vagina, then I'd encourage you to just sort of, deal with it. It's fine. Get over it. You'll be fine. It just takes practice. If you're on the fence about the environmental impact of, single use and what have you, then let it be known that making the switch from towels or tampons to a menstrual cup will save the planet approximately 16,000 products in your lifetime from going to landfill or in the ocean. There is another option, which is similar to a cup, which is a disc, which is, I don't have one of those to show you, but it's slightly shallower and wider. And they can be used during intercourse. What I would say is that do not mistake it for contraception. It's not. It's just an alternative to the cup that you use a little bit more frequently. That needs emptying. I'm just going to show you a different cup so that you get an idea, because they do come in all kinds of different colors and similar shapes, but some of them have like different rims and what have you. Does anybody have a question about menstrual cups?
Stacey, it's not about menstrual cups, but I've been meaning to, I meant to ask this to you last time we spoke. Out of anyone you spoke to, does anyone have any thoughts around like just free bleeding? Like, have you ever spoke to anybody around that topic?
I do know that I've never come across anybody that, personally through interviewing or otherwise, that does that. However, I am aware that it goes on, and that there was an Olympic runner who very famously did her marathon whilst free bleeding, just to demonstrate and raise awareness. I don't know that I'm ready for that. even with my period power kind of stance. I don't think I'm ready to do that. I'd love to meet someone who is and just see what, you know, see what they say. But I don't know how much. I don't know, it's an interesting, I suppose, topic, because how much of it is choice and how much of it is, I'm sure that there are communities in other countries that may not have a choice. So, you know.
And perhaps it's more not, and perhaps that's normalized, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just wondering.
It's like the chicken and the egg. You know, is it about choice? Is it about, you know, normalization? We'll have to ask. I'll find someone. And the last one is period proof pants. So before you ask, they're not adult nappies, okay? They're not like adult mummy nappies or daddy nappies. They look just like an ordinary pair of knickers, and I've got quite a few here. So I'll grab this one to begin with. Okay. Now, when I first started looking at period pants, they were only available. I'll start again. They were only available in nude or black, right? But that has now changed. You can get lacy ones, you can get leopard print ones, you can get different colors, you can get period proof swimwear, bikini style, high-waisted, hipster, boy shorts, although I suspect that these are a little on the short side to be really like boy shorts. But I expect that to change because Modibody and things are like, you know, they're on it. And Modibody is actually one of the first to offer period proof gym leggings that you can go commando in, which I have it on good authority work really, really well. All of the providers, I'll just show, this is an example of one of them. So just like a normal pair of black knickers. They all use our good friend bamboo or cotton wool microfiber and have about 3 or 4 layers of fabric. Modibody uses a layer of bamboo to wick the moisture away, then merino wool in the inside to absorb it, and then they use a microfiber to act as a barrier to prevent against leakages. Now you can wear these as a standalone product, or you can use them as like a bit of a backup, although to be honest, these are can be quite expensive. So, you know, if you're going to invest in it, I would say just invest in a really good quality one and use it as a standalone product. And they come in a range of absorbencies from light to overnight and heavy. And you can wear them for about 8 hours, depending on your flow. You won't feel moisture. It doesn't feel wet or, you know, icky or anything like that. And in the same way that you know, use your pads and sort of rinse them off with cold water and then throw them in the washing machine, you do the same thing with these. Prices range from £10 for a pair to up to over £30 for a pair, depending on the provider and the, you know, the thickness and the absorbency in the fabrics that they're using. So it can be a bit steep. And now every company that I've looked at has multi-buy offers, which does help. And some of them do like a buy one, donate a pair. So for instance, I think Thinks and Modibody, if you buy a pair of pants from them, they will donate a pair to a charity or an organization that provides them. And in terms of benefits, once you get past the fear that you're going to bleed through and leak into your trousers, and you find the right pair for your flow, then they're the least fussy in many ways and require the least interaction with your intimate parts. They provide a lot of flexibility when you're traveling and on busy days, and like pads, they're a less intimidating option for younger menstruators. So the only thing for me is that the price is definitely a barrier. I'll show you a few. I've got like, I mean, these look like a ginormous pair, but you can see the lace along the top. These are high-waisted. These have actually been, I have it on good authority that these are some of the nude ones. They're not very inspiring, those two, but these ones, you get some nice ones. Modibody, I'm going to show you the hipster boy short ones. You can let me know if you think that they're, you know, like proper shorts, or if they're a bit high cut, aren't they? I think. But I think that they will adapt that. It wouldn't surprise me. And here's an example of their swim pants. They're just like a normal pair of bikini bottoms. So what do you think about those?
I think they look great.
Yeah.
I think, do you think there's an opportunity for perhaps some kind of action to be taken around lowering the price of those products? Like, because if it's going to suit the environment, if those pants seem like a really kind of easy universe, like that would people wouldn't struggle necessarily to use that in any way.
I think certainly raising more awareness, because the more demand there is for something, you tend to see a drop in price, or you see it becomes more widely available. Like, just even in the last 2 years, the number of companies making these pants has increased significantly, because at first it was just Molly Body and Things, and now you've got all these other different companies making them. I would say that it's a really good place to start would be government initiatives that provide free period products to schools and colleges, because at the moment, as far as I'm aware, when schools get their list of products that they are able to get for free, they're allowed to order tampons, pads, and menstrual cups. But I think that if more pressure was put on them to provide, because these costs, are similar to the menstrual cup, and certainly the government, I'm sure, could get a discount on a bulk buy, surely.
There's Thea's made a really good point in the chats, and I think that they're still taxed, whereas like the tampon tax and stuff has now been abolished, but not so with those reusable pants. So yeah.
It'll be another mountain for us to climb, and sort of
just another
push the government.
50 years.
Yeah. But the thing is, once you start kicking down barriers, the other barriers suddenly become a lot easier to push over, because if you can no longer make an argument for taxing tampons and pads, then you can't really continue to make an argument to tax the reusable products, in my mind, because for me, when we talk about period poverty, I feel like this is the answer, by being able to empowering women and other menstruators to have access to these products. You're actually ending the cycle of poverty. You're certainly minimizing it by saying you don't have to go out and keep buying, month after month. Here's just one product, and you can use that either for the next 10 years or for the next 2 years and not have to worry about it. But it's about breaking down that barrier first.
And I have a question and a comment. My question is, can you wear the pants all day, or do you have to do a little change halfway through, or do you just have to figure out your flow?
I'll tell you now, right? So for instance, right, I have Molly Body's sensual high waist bikini pants. We'll give you an example. So a super light absorbency pair of knickers will hold the equivalent of half a tampon, right? So if you've got a light flow, they're for you. You can wear them like a normal pair of knickers. If you're wearing the heavy overnight absorbency pants, they will hold up to 2 tampons worth of menstrual fluid. So different pants will hold different amounts of fluid, which will then determine how often you want to change them. But you could, they say wear them up to about 8 hours. For the heavy overnight flow ones, obviously, if you go to bed, if you're somebody that sleeps for 10 hours, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. But yeah, you can wear a pair of pants for the day,
And my comment was that my friend lives in Wales, And she said she went to her local library recently and she saw that they were doing like a scheme where you could get reusable products. And
Oh.
what weirdly is she just ticked that she didn't know she'd get sent them all, but she just ticked all of them to be like anything that you've got. But they didn't kind of you couldn't specify a size, which was really odd. But anyway, luckily she was sent the right size pants. She was sent 3 or 4 plaids and a cup, all
Oh,
for
wow.
free, which I think is amazing. And that was a scheme that the Welsh libraries were doing. So I don't know whether I think that maybe the UK could do that, because you know, if Wales can do it. Maybe it needs to. Maybe she was just lucky, as I say, because she got sent. She was worried that the pants were going to be like too big or too small.
Yeah.
But she got sent everything. She was so chuffed. Because we're doing this campaign, she rang me straight away and like FaceTimed me and showed me all of the things that she got sent. But yeah, amazing. And I just thought I'd share that.
Fantastic.
And there's just one more thing in the chat as well from Thea saying, I'm wondering if anyone knows much about the environmental consequences of making the different reusable products. Like if you look at the manufacturing process of cups versus period pants, like again, that's interesting.
What I can sort of say, I can't answer that definitively because it's not something that I know masses and masses about. But what I can tell you is, in terms of differences, so for instance, the bamboo. Okay, so we know that bamboo is a really sustainable plant, and that is used for pads and for making the pants. So in terms of the actual fabrics and the materials, they're making more sustainable choices. Even when you look at using organic cotton, there is a bit of there is an environmental cost because you actually end up using more water to water the cotton plants. Every choice that you make, there's no such thing unless you're going to, grow some, buy a sheep and shear it and make your own wool and spin your own thread. And every choice that we make, there is going to be some sort of carbon footprint. I think even with reusable products, I think that the key thing is that you're not filling up landfill and you're not flushing stuff down into the toilets or blocking things, and things aren't ended up in the ocean. And each of the companies that make these are committed to creating a more sustainable and ethical way of trading. So I think that that's, yes, there's going to be a carbon footprint at some point because they're going to, if you're ordering it online, it has to come from somewhere. So you've got the manufacturing, and then you've got the packaging, and then it's sent to you. So there's always going to be, and that applies to any consumer choice that you make, not just reusable period products. That's any kind of, if you don't want to, like I know somebody who's a vegan, but who uses peanut butter with palm oil in it. So it's like, everywhere, every consumer choice that you make, you're probably not going to get it 100% right unless you're prepared to go live, in a secluded island and sew your own clothes together using your own hair. So, but we do what we can.
Thanks, Stacey. Has anyone got any more questions or comments before we wrap up? Because it's 2:05.
Yeah, sorry.
Give you a second to write it in the chat if anyone wants to.
For my part, I'd just like to say thank you. It's been really lovely chatting about it, and you've raised some really interesting points that I'll take back from me. And as I say, if you're interested in getting involved in our research at the centre, please just let us know and pass on your details to the Warren, and I will be in touch.
Cool. Definitely. Yeah, if anybody wants to do that, then give me a shout. And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Any thoughts about cups in young girls around between the ages of 15 to 20 is in the chat.
Between 15 to 20, it depends on the individual, I would say. I can't really see a massive, because some 15, I think if you're prepared to use a tampon, then a cup isn't a huge leap. But I think that it's a good idea to get younger people using reusables if you can, which is why I said, the pants or the pads are a really good, like gateway. If you get them using that, then they'll be more inclined to maybe transition to a cup at a later stage when it's less intimidating.
Awesome, thank you. Right, well, thanks again, everyone. We've got the last one next week with theatre company Roaring Girls talking about menstrual health. So yeah, come along to that if you can.
Thanks so much for coming and listening to our talk today. If you'd like to know more about any of our guest speakers or any of the ones featured in previous talks, just email me, l@thewarren.org, or give us a ring on 01482 218 115. See you soon.